Hello and welcome to Armchair Cinema. I'm Jason and I'm here with Maren.
Hi.
So today, we're discussing the film Citizen Kane, which I've seen because I'm a pretentious film snob. Maren, what did you think of the film?
I thought it was a work of Brechtian brilliance with obvious inspirations from the silent era, especially with Eisenstein's montage and German expressionism.
I don't understand any of what that means. Well, let's talk about the pretty camera work.
Yes, the cinematography has its influence from the Lumiere brothers. Notice the way the camera tells the story, the way it frames the characters. It reminds me of this one science fiction film nobody cares about.
Oh, just let you talk a bit while I make some snide comments.
Snide comments. You think all I do is make snide comments? Don't you ever! Hi, welcome back to Armchair Cinema. I'm Jason. This is Maren.
Hello.
And I don't know what happened earlier, but nothing happened earlier. That's exactly what happened. Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And we're talking about Studio Ghibli today.
Yep.
Maren, what did you see?
I saw Spirited Away, the live-on-stage adaptation.
And I saw Princess Mononoke in IMAX theaters in 4K.
Fucking awesome.
I know, it was.
I would have seen it, but Sherlock Jr. with synced to REM was playing at the Neon, and I couldn't miss that to save my life.
Oh,
yeah.
If I wasn't watching Princess Mononoke, I probably would have seen that too.
Yeah.
But if I ever get the chance to see a Studio Ghibli film, especially Princess Mononoke, which is my favorite Studio Ghibli film, if I ever get the chance to see that in theaters, in 4K, and IMAX, I'm going to take that chance.
So, did the 4K resolution bring any new insights on Princess Mononoke as a film?
Nothing new, but it's just so fucking beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Ghibli's absolutely stunning. So, I think it's very interesting adapting Studio Ghibli from an animation standpoint to a stage production, because obviously stage and animation have very different strengths. Incredibly different. But they do have an important thing in common, and that is they are both not directly representational works of art.
Elaborate on that.
Yeah. But what I mean by that is they're both abstracted presentation methods. You're not supposed to look at an animated movie and be like, wow, this is so real. It's like these things are actual physical things that I believe exist. And likewise on stage, especially the kind of stage production that Spirited Away live on stage is, you're not looking at these characters and these puppets and thinking, oh, that's like actually no face in front of me. That's clearly a performer in a mask doing, a really awesome choreography. So they're not directly representational, and what that allows for is it allows more room for the artist. And I place this in contrast with Disney's live-action remakes, which their goal is direct representation. They want you to look at the lions in The Lion King and be like, those are real lions that are really performing this in front of me. Those are real lions. So that removes the artist from the picture, because the artist is just trying to replicate lions in that case. And when you're dealing with highly folkloric storytelling, I'm getting like really heady here. When you're dealing with highly folkloric storytelling like Disney and Ghibli, and especially in Disney's case, directly folklore, Ghibli's case sort of adapted and modernized folklore generally, you have a strong benefit for having the storyteller feel like a part of the presentation. And because Spirited Away live on stage is this abstracted representation and not a direct representation, it's able to maintain that, which is some of Ghibli's strongest, vibes, if that makes sense. Am I making any sense at all?
You're making sense to me.
Okay,
I'm glad. I just wonder how that differs from, like, we can get to this later if you want, but how that differs from, like, representation versus, like, in film. Because in film, I know that what I'm seeing is actors representing a character.
Okay, so like Iron Man, right?
Yes.
You're supposed to look at that Iron Man suit and be like, that looks real.
That's
like,
Tony Stark in a
Right.
metal suit.
You look at Haku in Spirited Away or the forest spirit in Mononoke. You're not like, that's how a forest spirit would look like. This is gorgeous. This is beautiful. This is, you're looking at its own aesthetic value to inform your engagement as opposed to how immersively authentic it looks.
Okay.
Because like the Iron Man suit's impressive in all the Iron Man movies because it looks authentic. It looks like something that could exist.
It doesn't look like a representation of a metal suit. It looks like a metal suit.
Exactly. But with animation and with the stage production, you're looking at representations of things. It's abstracted away from reality. And that allows the artist to feel more present within the work.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, I'm dealing with like really.
You just got an A+ on a paper in film school.
Yeah, no, like I could have written this out as an animation essay and gotten an A clearly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and another way that Spirited Away does this, and I was expecting the puppets because I'd seen trailers and things, and the puppets are so much a part of the marketing because they are very elaborate. Sort of elaborate. They're elaborate in a way that you don't usually see in stage productions in the West. By which that I mean they are very traditional, and they're not like elaborate in the way that, I don't know if you've seen Warhorse.
I have not seen more. I'll admit I don't see very many stage plays.
Okay. Well, for example, the Warhorse puppet is much closer in movement and detail to a real horse. That was what they were really trying to do. Make it look like there is a horse. And obviously it isn't going as far as direct representation as like, a movie would.
Yeah.
But it's still trying to play with the idea of a good example is the three-head guy. They're guys, I guess. Yeah. They're played by a man in a sumo outfit with a head on one hand, a head on the other hand, and a head on his head.
That's clever.
And they're not trying to hide the fact that it's a dude with arms, legs, and all that. But they're drawing attention to the right things and keeping the performer backgrounded but still present. And I kind of lost where I was going with this.
I don't know, but it's fascinating.
I'm glad it's fascinating, because I worry that I'm like talking over people's heads. I've been accused of that on multiple occasions, talking about sci-fi movies nobody cares about.
I have no idea what you're referring to. And frankly, I'm a little offended that you even bring that up.
Anyway, I was talking about how the puppets are not overly complicated, but still elaborate in their own way, I think. But yeah, so there's not only that, and I was expecting the puppets. To get back to my original point, what I wasn't expecting going in that I was really pleasantly surprised by is how balletic the production was. Ghibli's movies are very visual.
Yeah.
Even Spirited Away and even Mononoke, you could probably cut out all the dialogue and still have a solid half an hour to an hour movie.
Just from the gorgeous scenery and animation.
Right. With none of the dialogue scenes. And Spirited Away on stage honors that by having most of it feels like most of the runtime. I don't know. I'd have to, break it down. But I'm pretty sure about the same amount of runtime of Spirited Away on stage is dance. Just straight up dance. No Face is portrayed almost exclusively through dance and puppetry, because obviously No Face doesn't have a lot in the way of lines.
No.
He borrows his voice from other characters, and even then only temporarily. And there's times where No Face is the only thing on stage, and it's just this ballet, basically, which is really cool. There's the bit where Chihiro's getting pulled through all the doors into what's her name? The evil witch.
There are two witches.
Yeah, the evil one.
The
who runs
evil
the
one.
bathhouse.
You're the one that saw it. I didn't.
I know, and I just finished watching it this morning. Yubaba.
Yes.
Yubaba. When she's getting pulled into Yubaba's office. You have this whirling balletic dance with her and the Doors, and it's just this stunningly gorgeous bit of choreography, and so much of the stage production is just that, and it really is bringing to the stage what you get when you watch a Ghibli movie. It's not beautiful animation, it's beautiful movement, it's beautiful performers. So yeah, I think I've just about exhausted that. I've been kind of yakking on and on.
My turn.
Yay, yak!
Yeah. Princess Mononoke is my favorite animated film of all time. The thing about Ghibli films is that there's seldom ever a bad guy, and it's more about the conflict between characters and not just one person being evil, but one person being complicated. And with Princess Mononoke, I think that showcases this very well, because it's not about how one person is destroying the environment. It's about how nature and mankind is in conflict with each other, because mankind is greedy and will take from nature without giving anything back. And this disrupts the world. It disrupts nature, but at the same time, it creates so much opportunity and things that mankind needs. So it's about a balance between mankind and nature. And it's about Ashitaka. Mm-hmm. Ashitaka is banished from his tribe. He's a prince, but he's banished from his tribe because he was defending it from a demon, and gets cursed when he touches the demon. Mm-hmm. And now that he's cursed, he has to leave the tribe, and he can't tell anyone where he's been or anything about it, and he can't come back either. Mm-hmm. And so he goes on his way to find out about this cursed boar that attacked him in his village, and where that takes him, and if he can find a way to get rid of this curse. Because if not, this curse is like a cancer. It's going to grow and grow, and it's going to kill him eventually. And what he finds is that the boar had been cursed by a bullet, an iron bullet, essentially, from a gun that was created in a town run by a woman whose name escapes me.
I know this. Lady Eboshi.
But anyways, Lady Eboshi is head of a town that their primary export is iron. And the way that they cut down the forest, the way that they mine for iron, everything is just destroying this beautiful, and I mean gorgeous fucking forest where ancient gods live, taking the form of animals. And it's about Ashitaka, who comes from a tribe that respects nature, and he is trying to find a way to stop this war between the gods of the forest and Lady Eboshi's village.
Yeah, it's something that stuck out to me as you were reading back that synopsis that I don't think I've really seen in other folkloric kind of style stories. Is that the curse isn't from something ancient and natural. You get a lot of ancient and natural curses in these kinds of stories. But no, the curse is something modern. It's something that is man-made. And it's not man-made as deliberately a curse, but it is a curse simply by its very nature.
What's interesting is Ashitaka describes curses and, the curse he has and the way that the war is going on as hatred. Mm. He's cursed with hatred, I guess. And you notice that whenever he gets angry, whenever, whether someone's being attacked or he's being attacked or he hears something that just pisses him off, he starts, like, his cursed hand starts acting up. At one point, Lady Eboshi, yes, I know names. Lady Eboshi talks about how she makes iron and how she's proud of the work she's done, the way she's cut down the forest and pissed off the gods. And at this point, Ashitaka his cursed hand is reaching for his sword,
right? And
he's trying to fight it.
Yeah. So yeah, it seems like it's sort of connecting this idea of warfare with technology as sort of like, I don't know if necessarily it's saying they're both one and the same, but like almost like it's saying that.
What I got from it is that mankind is greedy,
Well, yes.
and that
yes, that is true.
the whole war is started because people take,
Yeah.
and and they will ruin things, but at the same time, we kind of need those things. So there's a way to
Right.
so there's a theme of balance.
Right, because something that is a big idea that you didn't really go too deep into was the idea that the town Lady Eboshi runs is a nice place to live.
Eboshi is a good lady. She's a
Right.
good person.
Yeah.
She goes to brothels, but she buys the contract of all the working ladies there. She gives the men a job, and she helps treat the lepers that she finds.
She runs a very healthy, happy community. The only issue is that it's at the expense of the natural world.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, kind of the movie's questioning, does it have to be at the expense of the natural world?
I mean, at some point she does become an antagonist
Mm-hmm.
because what's the character's name? Jigo,
It's been too long.
the sort of fat monk kind of character.
Yeah, I remember him, but I don't remember.
But he comes along and he has a deal with the emperor, and he says the emperor wants the head of the forest god of
Yes.
I forget the name of the forest god.
I just remember it as the forest spirit. That's all I remembered it
The forest spirit, we'll call it that.
Yeah.
Wants to have the forest spirit under the belief that it will grant him immortality, and Lady Eboshi gets in on this deal, and at some point, Ashitaka has to stop her.
Yeah, basically.
Most of the time, he's trying to stop the conflict, but at this point in the story, he is fighting Lady Eboshi.
Yeah. I don't really have too much to add at this point. I think kind of.
Well, it's man, what can you say about Studio Ghibli films that has been said 1,000 times?
Here's a good question that's appropriate for the both of us. Would you want to see a stage production of Princess Mononoke?
If it was handled by Miyazaki
Mm-hmm.
and like people who are the best in the business,
Mm-hmm.
and it was an entirely Japanese thing because you don't put Americans in charge of Japanese
No,
things.
definitely not. Although, actually, I do have something to add to that. The co-writer and director of Spirited Away Live on Stage is a British man.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the production is overall Japanese, and it was done very much with Miyazaki's blessing. He met with this British director whose name escapes. I should probably look it up. Probably a good idea to be able to say who made what movies.
We're professionals.
John Caird.
John Caird.
So yeah, like he'd met with Miyazaki and like laid out his vision for the project, and Miyazaki was able to give approval to the project. So it isn't like there was no involvement whatsoever, and it was handled by Toho as a Japanese production. So it was still very much a Japanese production, but it was co-written and directed by a British man.
By the best.
Presumably, I don't know anything about him.
I don't know very much about stage plays. I'm a film person.
Yeah.
But if Princess Mononoke had a stage adaptation, I would be all for it if it was done full-heartedly and not just a cash grab, which it sounds to me like Spirited Away was not. Spirited Away was a labor of love, and it was someone who understood the material and wanted to adapt it into a stage production.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's the feeling it gives. And I'm more of a theater person, I guess, but I'm not really like too into it. So I'm not entirely sure how much of Spirited Away Live on Stage springs from British theater culture as opposed to Japanese theater culture. But it did feel very approachable for a Western audience, which was nice. I think it's a lot more dancey and balletic than a lot of people would expect from a stage production here in the West. But I mean, it's not like it's completely like a actual ballet or an opera where there's no dialogue whatsoever.
But if it were, that'd be just fine because it's Studio Ghibli.
Oh yeah, no, it would work really well that way. In fact, maintaining the dialogue, which is not completely unchanged from the movie, but broadly the same. You know, It's also quite a bit longer, and I'm not sure where that runtime came from. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I believe Spirited Away is just over 2 hours.
Well, it's a lot easier to dance for 2 hours than it is to animate for 2 hours.
Very true. Yeah, Spirited Away is 2 hours 15 minutes, so there's an additional like 25 minutes to the stage version. Doesn't look like there's any new content to it. It's just a little slower paced, which I actually did not mind. It felt like a good length. It's interesting. I'd always entertained the notion of if I was going to do any Ghibli movie in live action, just as a hypothetical, I would pick Princess Mononoke.
Because I was actually kind of thinking about that while I was watching this film, and after I was done drooling and going, "Oh, I love this movie," I was thinking, would this work in live action?
I mean, given my essay I just spoke about how direct representation isn't necessarily the best approach to take with this kind of folkloric storytelling, I mean, do you think that, solidified your opinion at all?
Well, I feel like if you did do a live action and took away a lot of that representation, you'd be missing a lot of the point.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that it portrays the forest, the way that the characters move, there's nothing in this that demands it be animated beyond the little tree folk people.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting when Spirited Away Live on Stage was announced that of all the Ghibli productions, Spirited Away seems like the most suited to animation, given you have this huge variety of spirits that all take these different forms, and trying to do that with puppetry and people is a challenge, to say the least.
Yeah, but it's also very contemporary, and I think that it still speaks to its audience, animated or not, with the way that it portrays its story. And I think that's a story that a lot of people can relate to, because it's about growing up. It's about finding yourself and remembering who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice. It's wonderful. I don't know what to say. It is what it is.
If they were to do a live action Studio Ghibli film, especially with Princess Mononoke, well, I feel like they kind of already did that, and you're gonna look at me kind of weird when I say this, because I feel like a lot of Lord of the Rings was inspired by this movie.
I could see it. Yeah, no, I was kind of thinking in that direction too.
Yeah, just the way that it portrays this lush, gorgeous environment, and the way it talks about it takes these fantasy elements and combines them into an epic.
Yeah. In fact, you know what? I'm going to blame Princess Mononoke for everyone's inflated expectations on War of the Rohirrim. I know it's like way off topic, but I don't know if you saw War of the Rohirrim.
I did, actually.
I really enjoyed it.
I did, too.
But people were ragging on it, saying it looks cheap, and it's like, yeah, sure, it's not Ghibli, but like no one else is Ghibli. Cut them some slack. Animation's hard.
I think a lot of the criticism towards that film was kind of misplaced. I think a lot of people who were watching it weren't familiar with anime, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think my biggest criticism with that film was that it felt like Lord of the Rings fan fiction.
Oh yeah, sure.
And no shade to fan fiction, but it felt like this is a fan's rewriting of something Tolkien.
Yeah, I mean, because Tolkien never wrote it.
Because Tolkien never really wrote it.
No, he had a couple lines about Helm Hammerhand in one of the appendices, but that's it. So, I mean, yeah, it's everything Lord of the Rings is going to be fan fiction now, because no one's going to want to remake The Hobbit or the trilogy anymore, because why would you? We've got, well, maybe you'd want to redo The Hobbit. Please redo The Hobbit. Seriously, get Guillermo del Toro to do The Hobbit. Just ignore those.
The fact that del Toro didn't do The Hobbit is one of the reasons I'm still angry at the world.
No, right? Although I think we got Shape of Water because of that, so swings and roundabouts.
You take some, you get some. Yeah.
Shape of Water is one of those movies I would not want to miss out on. Mm-hmm. You would have been too busy. I mean, you probably would have made Shape of Water later, let's be honest. But anyway, bringing it back to Ghibli and animation, which we probably should do. I was thinking, just now about if I would want to see Princess Mononoke in live action. And while I think it is probably of the Ghibli movies that I've seen the best suited, maybe Grave of the Fireflies, but that would be like even more depressing. I don't know if I want to see real people go through that. So I'm gonna stick with Mononoke probably being the best suited, but I do think that seeing the forest spirit rendered out in CGI, or the boars or the wolves rendered out in CGI with great detail would just be incredibly depressingly disappointing.
It would have to be representational, like you mentioned earlier. It would have to be less of a photorealistic wolf and a photorealistic boar and photorealistic apes. It would have to be rendered kind of like it was in a 3D cartoon.
Yeah, like maybe something in the style of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish or something, with a sort of painterly aesthetic. That would be bizarre. I don't think audiences would go for that at all.
No, they not next to real live actors.
Yeah, I think they'd push back against that hard, because we've only seen that kind of thing in comedy movies. You know, your Space Jam, your Mary Poppins, your, Looney Tunes Back in Action, which is a better movie than people remember.
Someone's going to tell you how wrong you are someday.
I know, right? The movie's actually fun. Anyway. But yeah, I don't think that audiences could really take that seriously, which is really unfortunate, because I'd actually really like to see that.
Well, not to mention that I don't think that Princess Mononoke needs a live-action remake.
Oh, no.
None of these movies actually really need anything other than what they are.
Right, absolutely.
And any addition to that has to be handled very, very carefully.
And at best, a good supplemental. Something I haven't mentioned yet is the plot of Spirited Away. And that's because, quite frankly, that's not really relevant to the stage production. The stage production assumes you've seen the movie, because so much of what's going on is that abstracted representational. There's some points I'm sure if I had not seen the original, I'd be a little lost. I wouldn't know what they're doing.
Is that because you saw it, what was it, bootlegged?
No, I have it on Blu-ray.
Okay, you have it on Blu-ray.
They released a Blu-ray.
Okay, so it was translated for an English audience,
yes.
But was it maybe didn't have the same translation team as the animated film?
I don't know anything about that. I mean, the dialogue seemed very reminiscent of the movie. I don't remember any like things that stuck out at me as like, that's a little bizarre, or like, that's not how I remember the story going. But what I'm really getting at is, like, there's a lot of scenes where Chihiro is climbing in and around the bathhouse, and the animated movie is able to make the geography of that very clear. But because you have limited room on a stage, you have like an extended sequence of Chihiro climbing up a ladder in place, right? So you don't really get a sense for where she is geographically speaking on the outside of the bathhouse. And there's that bit where she's just before she's entered the bathhouse, she's getting into the boiler room, and she slips on the steps, right? And that, I was like, what is she doing? Oh, right, this is the part where she slips on the steps, and because the steps are wet, and you don't really get that from a stage perspective, right? So there's a couple things that I think like would be a little bit like alienating if you haven't seen the original movie. I think the stage production definitely assumes you've seen that. And so it means the stage play really only works as a supplement to the animated movie. It's a good supplement, but I don't think it really works as a thing you should seek out and watch only as your only experience of Spirited Away. You'll be missing some detail to it.
So it's great. I haven't seen it, so it's great. And it's beautiful, but it doesn't work entirely as an adaptation.
Yeah, I would say that it doesn't work entirely as an adaptation, but I think that also actually has a lot to do with the ambition of the project. I think a more structured and narrative-driven work like Princess Mononoke would probably translate better, because Spirited Away is so much more vibesy and so much less narrative. I mean, you could probably, if you were to cut out and like really cut it to the bone, you could get the basic story ideas across in probably a half an hour. You can't do that with Princess Mononoke.
No.
It is way too complicated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because fundamentally, Spirited Away is what Chihiro's parents get, eat the food, turn into pigs. She gets a job at the bathhouse. She gets away from the job at the bathhouse and meets Yubaba's sister.
The other witch.
The other witch, Z something.
The nice witch.
Yes, the nice witch.
Not Glenda.
No, the only name that's coming to mind is Zybilna, but that's a D&D character. Zeniba. I think it's Zeniba.
Okay.
That's registering. Anyway, she meets Zeniba and saves Haku. I guess it's a little complicated because you have to bring in Haku and No Face, but I mean, you could still get it in about half an hour, I think. If you really cut it to the bone and cut out all the stuff that made it good, you could probably get it in an hour and a half. And then she figures out who her parents are, and they all go home, and she's got a crazy story. No one will believe her. But yeah, so I think that a more narrative-focused story would probably work better on stage, because you have so much less of that kind of vibesy stuff that is a little more difficult to do on stage. Because you can do dialogue on a stage really well, and Princess Mononoke is very dialogue-heavy in comparison to Spirited Away.
Well, there's a lot of moments of Princess Mononoke that aren't filled with any sort of dialogue. And
Well, yes, but in comparison to Spirited Away, I think it's more reliant on the dialogue.
It's been a while since I've seen Spirited Away, so I need to rewatch that.
Yeah.
But that's another great thing about Ghibli films, that whether they're noisy or not, they are telling a story, and they're telling that story very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Addressing the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
There's a controversy going on about Studio Ghibli, isn't there?
Yes, OpenAI set up an app or something that allows you to take any photo and re-render it in Ghibli style.
Re-render or just mangle?
Yeah. So it uses, machine learning to... And we don't know necessarily what the machine is trained on, but I think we can take a guess, considering they're advertising it as Ghibli style. It takes, presumably, training data from Studio Ghibli films, allegedly, according to me, based on my understanding of the technology, and is able to alter real-world photos and make them look like they were drawn by Studio Ghibli artists. And it brings me back to what I was saying about the artist and the storyteller, or artists and storytellers, and how these abstracted means of representation give more room for the artist to be present in the work. And AI's just taking the artist right back out.
There it is.
They're just taking the artist, pulling him right back out, and it's like, what is even the point of re-rendering a photograph in animation? You're not adding anything.
It's literally plagiarizing someone else's work.
Right.
One of the greatest artists of our day, their work, and just bastardizing it.
Yeah, the forest spirit in Princess Mononoke and Haku and Spirited Away aren't amazing because they, are just pretty in and of themselves, or because they look real. It's because of the awe and majesty that they inspire within us, and it's the artists who worked to put that there. And when we feel those feelings, we are communing with those artists. We are getting the message that they are sending, and they become an inextricable part of the story that they are telling. You render this crap in AI, there's nothing there. It's a medium without a message.
It's just, look how cool this looks.
It's garbage.
It's like, imagine if I looked like a Studio Ghibli film, but I didn't have the ass to put in any work.
Right, and likewise, aside from your image from the original photograph, you're not in that image. You aren't artistically involved in that image's creation. It's like turning this abstracted representation into bad direct representation.
So we're not fond of this.
No, we aren't. We aren't fond of this at all. I don't know if there's really much more to say about it, quite frankly.
No, there really isn't much more.
Garbage. Well, aside from the fact that that fake cease and desist letter was obviously fake and they're pathetic for posting it. Did you hear about that?
I did. I heard a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But, my understanding of copyright law was a little bit like, I don't think that's really true. I don't think that they're allowed to.
They can do a C&D on that.
They can.
Because the C&D isn't necessarily a legal document. It's a threat to sue, basically.
Yeah.
And so if that was Ghibli, which I don't believe for an instant it was, and you want to know why? Because the name at the bottom of the list, that was the legal company that it was supposedly sent by, doesn't exist.
That's a big clue right there.
The phone number is a 555 number, so the phone number they listed there doesn't exist. And I also find it really strange, and maybe they would do this. I think that probably they would use their own internal legal counsel, but I'm pretty sure Studio Ghibli would not use a New York-based legal counsel to write up and send their C&D.
Probably not.
I mean, they might. I don't know. But I'd like to think that they've got international legal experts in Japan that would do that. And they wouldn't outsource that to a firm in New York. Certainly not a firm in New York that, as far as I can tell, doesn't exist.
This firm that doesn't exist with a fake phone number.
With a fake phone number and a fake email address. Someone else tried to email it. I don't know. I just heard this through the grapevine that someone, in a comment section was like, yeah, I tried emailing it and it bounced back. The email doesn't exist. So
these people that don't exist might send you a cease and desist letter. That's another reason not to use AI.
All I can think of, because it was the people behind this app that posted that, is that they expected to get attention from Studio Ghibli and to use that to market themselves. And when they didn't get the attention that they were expecting, they decided to just manufacture a fake cease and desist letter. Which is pathetic.
Hey ladies, I heard you like Bad Boys, so I pissed off one of the greatest artists of our time. And when that didn't work, I pretended like I pissed off the greatest artist of our time.
God, yeah. It's pathetic. I should also clarify, I've got no evidence that this is the case. There is a slim possibility that they altered the contact information of the legal firm they did receive it from for some reason. I don't know why they would. And if they did, why didn't they just black it out or blur it? But again... I cannot pretend to understand the machinations of broken minds. It was weirdly poetic.
That was beautiful, actually. All right, so, Maren, would you recommend Spirited Away on stage?
If you've seen the original animated movie, absolutely. No hesitation.
I would recommend Princess Mononoke to anybody who has eyes. It's a great damn movie, and Studio Ghibli is amazing.
Yep.